everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Kris Ashley. I'm really excited for our conversation today. First, couple quick announcements. Head over to the link in the show notes. You'll find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. You'll find a link to my free workshops, to my courses, to all kinds of resources that are going to help you along your journey, along your healing journey. And like, comment, share, subscribe. Please, let's help spread the good word. I think the world needs a lot of love, a lot of healing right now. So let's start it right here in our community. Hi, I'm Kris. When I was younger, I went through trauma that caused me to feel broken and lost. But my life changed after I had a spiritual awakening. Since then, I've dedicated my life to studying and learning from masters all around the world that have helped me to create a life of fulfillment and abundance beyond my wildest dreams. Now I'm dedicated to sharing everything I've learned so that you don't have to suffer for decades like I did. I've seen people's lives completely transform, and I share it all right here. Okay, so I'm really excited for my guest tonight. I have Kacie Eileen Knight with me. So Kacie is a spiritual teacher, mentor, author, and speaker, and founder of Luminous Evolution, a revolutionary movement that is all about blending personal, spiritual, and business development for healers, coaches, and practitioners so they can share their magic with the world. Kacie has almost 20 years of transformational coaching and facilitation experience and has created her own incredible energy work modality that helps to restore people to their divine essence and activate their soul gifts. She loves empowering people and helping them embody their magic, from intuitive development to activating their soul voice to hosting workshops and retreats. In her private mentorship, digital courses, certifications, oracle cards, and more. And I don't know about you, but I just got excited reading all of that. I can't wait to ask about it all. So welcome, Kacie. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a really cool conversation because I haven't had anyone on the show yet where we're talking about the business side of healers and coaches. So I'm excited to dive in, but I'm going to start this conversation the same way I start all of my conversations. And that is by asking you, what is your origin story? What led you on this path? What made you want to do this in the first place?
We have to go way back. My
Good.
origin story is when I was actually 8 years old. And I was just hanging out. I was by myself. And I was actually immersed in this light of spirit. And it was this very tangible physical experience of being in the most divine love. But I was told that I was going to be a spiritual teacher. I already had enough ego that was trying to protect me at this time that was like, no, 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 no. I'm just a kid. And this beautiful voice of creation, God, source, universe, whatever it was, whatever you call it, was like, when you're older, love, and showed me these images of really having a global impact and honestly scared the pants off of me. And I stuffed that way down for many years, didn't tell a soul. And I spent the next while trying to figure out what to do with my life when I grew up.
I mean, how nice though that someone came and told you what your soul purpose is. Because so many of us are just fumbling around trying to figure it out, right? For so many years. It's like they made it easy for you.
Yes, and I didn't fully want to claim it or own it for a very long time. And I didn't want to claim title of being a healer. I didn't want that kind of responsibility. I remember being 14 years old and having this whole plan for a wellness center. I had this name, Synergy Wellness Center, which has been taken now, but I'm 41. So this was many, many years ago before there were all of these integrative medical or wellness centers. And I was like, oh, I will administrate. I'm not going to have anything to do with the magic or the healing or any of the practitioner stuff. I'm just going to be the administrator and help the healers do their thing. I couldn't conceive of a role where I would be doing the work, really.
Why do you think that is? What was the block there? What were you afraid of?
I think it's something that a lot of us have had an experience with. And for short form, I think it's called the witch wound, where it's this fear of stepping into our power and our magic.
It's like that Marianne Williamson quote, right? I'm not going to remember the whole thing off the top of my head, but it's like, it's your light, not your darkness, that most terrifies you, right?
Oh, very much. And there were threads of truth to some of this because I am here specifically not to be on like the front lines, but I'm a helper of the helpers and healers. I work
Mhm.
with people that are already doing the work to help them expand. So that's one piece of it. But it took me a long time to heal many past life wounds and other things where I had responsibility for others. And I also had a thing around the word healer and
Hmm.
healing because I was like, well, I can help you heal. I can give you tools for you to heal. I can be an example of what that looks like and I can guide you through the process, but I'm not doing it for you. So I'm not a healer. I didn't like that word at all because of all of the baggage that it came with, too.
That makes sense because the only person that can really heal you is yourself, right? Healers kind of guide you towards that path, that inward path, but you're doing all the work. So I get that. That makes sense. That resonates.
And I had to do some like unplugging of the word to really feel comfortable using it and be like, okay, we'll use it because that's what people identify with. But I would still rather be a guide, a space holder, a teacher, an activator than a healer. But I know I'm here to help healers bring their gifts, their voice, their message, their work, their light to the world and ripple it out.
Yeah. And it's really cool that you ended up in that role because you had resistance to being that global healer. It's almost like you knew, like, yeah, that's kind of the path, but it's not exactly my role. It's like you intuitively knew that.
Yeah, I think I had to drop a lot of labels and just let it be what it was and allow it to evolve into what it is. And honestly, English is just so full of weird pieces that we can speak words to people and we're not going to get the same thing. So sometimes it's just fraught with these different definitions and everything like that. So sometimes I like just to go beyond words and just speak the language of frequency and essence and try to skip all of the definitions that we might not agree on.
Absolutely. And it's also so subjective in a weird way. Right? Okay, so your path has led you to be this assistant to healers in a I mean, if assistant is the right word, to assist them. And what does that look like? What are you doing now with this role?
I have a giant toolkit. So I have done many, many things to support healers with their voice, with what they're sharing with the world, with their own personal energetic flow. And also, right now, my passion is supporting them in really facilitating a transformational journey for people, whether it's a one on one journey or it is with groups. I think when we try to do healing work in like a single 1 hour session, we're really not able to have the impact that we desire because they call it a healing journey because it's a freaking journey, right? So I love to support healers and coaches and helpers learn how to create these transformational journeys to walk their clients through the process that needs to happen and hold space for them to not just have whatever healing modality they're doing, but to have the integration of the new identity, the new frequency of whatever it is that they're doing, to shift the mindset pieces, to help with the emotional regulation and the aligned actions. I think we need more time than just an hour. So, teaching people how to do coaching packages, VIP days, events like workshops, and even retreats to have that immersive experience where you can really go on the journey.
Yeah, and you brought up so many things that I want to ask about and you kind of touched on it, but First of all, what kind of healers do you work with? I know you said coaches, I know you said healers. Like, who is your ideal client?
I like to say it's the helpers, the people who look at the world and they're like, I can help. So it's a pretty wide variety of people that work with people that are in the health world, in the intuitive energy work world, in the physical alignment space, massage therapists, but also people who do mindset coaching, who are working with intuitive development, who are doing energy work, who are working with like feng shui and home decor design. I've worked with lots of psychologists actually and therapists and social workers. So the basic thing that brings them all together is that they want to help, but they also know that they have to be the example of the change for their clients so that their clients can actually download the codes from them to go from A to B.
Yeah. And also, they have to be a business owner, right? Which is a very, very different skill than being a healer or being a coach. And, you know, I just think about myself. I spend half my time reading spiritual things to keep learning, like spiritual material, to keep learning and growing in that aspect. And the other half is all business, right? Because I'm trying to grow a business here. And those require two different sides of my brain. So I imagine there's a lot of coming in, you're coming in and just trying to teach them that end of it.
First thing that I really like to support people with is expanding their capacity to hold more, because without it, we can't hold all these hats that we need to have.
Hmm.
And actually, really balance our physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental realms, I call them, so that we can be working in this holistic space. Because even though they seem like they're two different sides, the business and the spirituality, we actually can integrate the two different things. You might be thinking right brain, left brain, right? But actually, for the spiritual stuff to be really extra potent and magical, you need the intuitive and the analytical, the science and the magic, the creative and the intellectual. And it's the same for business. So I like to bridge things together so we're working in wholeness.
That totally makes sense. I totally get that, especially as someone who likes to back up all the spirituality I teach with science. That really, really resonates. So, what do you find most of these people are struggling with? Like, where do they really need your help?
You know, recently it's been with the perfection paradigm or program and also overwhelm. Have a lot of people who come to me who have big dreams, and they also have this superpower of being very detail oriented that's turned up way too high. So they have this expert expectation that it's got to be perfect from the get go. And
Mm.
they're kind of getting stuck because they're like, I don't know how to do it perfectly. So I just have to continue training and researching and practicing, or but not even practicing, like just doing the intellectual part to learn how to do it perfectly when that doesn't exist. And I help people remove the perfection program that has been instilled on them that says if you don't do it perfectly, you're worthless, you're a piece of garbage, which is what they're telling themselves, and say you're going to go so much further, so much faster if you take consistent action, and it can be messy action, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to align and learn and grow into what you want to do, into that perfection of like that mastery so much faster than just trying to learn it from the sitting still and researching phase.
That makes sense. It's like analysis paralysis, right? And
Totally.
I've been told that a lot too. It's like, okay, you just get out there and you do the damn thing, right? Like just thinking about retreats because that's something that I personally am starting to do. It's like, maybe you keep it a little lower price this time. You find a venue, you figure out your content, you do your marketing and you just do it, and then you're going to learn from it, and then you do it again, and then you're going to learn, and you keep adapting, right? Because that's what business is really about. Really, it's about being able to adapt.
Absolutely. And I think that study is amazing. I love it. And I mean, I've got certification programs where people can learn how and the skills that they need, but I want it to be balanced with practice, like you're saying, so they can actually practice, make mistakes, fine tune it, and then weave the two together. That's that path to mastery. Um, I also really recommend that you start with a whole freaking retreat. Start with like a workshop. Start with an hour or three with an intimate group of people and grow from that place.
So when you work with someone, let's say that someone wants to start putting on retreats, just because we're already talking about that. When you come in, do you hold their hand through the whole thing? Do you help them plan it? Do you help with the marketing? Do you help with each little piece along the way? Like what is your role look like?
My role is less on the marketing and the planning because that's not my place where I feel the happiest. I certainly could for a private client. For that piece, I have a beautiful checklist that is something that people can implement when they're wanting to do it. That is has been built between me and my beautiful program head. Between the two of us, we've got 40 years of event planning experience. We got the checklist there. You can like just check the things off with this checklist and planner and our systems and our templates. What I want to spend my time supporting people with is actually basically three phases. And this is what we work with in my transformational journey facilitator program. First, getting yourself aligned, knowing who you are and how to hold your energy so that you can be a great facilitator and coach. Because I think that has to be first. Like, we need stability so that we are able to be the best facilitator possible. Then I teach them the skills, the structures, the templates for space holding, and how people need to learn and have all of these different pieces that's all are required for someone to actually have that transformational journey. So I give them the accelerated learning template. I give them the 5 different realms of creation. I give them my evolutionary alchemy system, and I show them how to apply these to any niche, to use your magic in this alchemy with these systems and templates, so that you know if you just do this, your people are going to have the most amazing transformational time. I teach them a lot about creating containment, making sure it's trauma informed, how to hold space for people when they're going through like big feelings, how to create enough time for sharing so people feel heard and seen. Like all of those actual tangible pieces of what to do inside the retreat. And also, we do the same thing with coaching. So,
Yeah, thanks for explaining all that. I have a bunch of questions for sure now. But the first one is like, what advice? Just going back to how what you said before, like start with a 3-hour workshop. Start small. What advice do you have to someone who tried to do that? Like maybe they've tried to create like a small 1 to 3 hour workshop. They've put a bunch of money into advertising, and then no one's showing up. Like, and they're just feeling defeated. Like, what do you tell people then? What's the magic to get that off the ground?
first off, I would say congratulations for giving it a try and well done. It doesn't mean anything about you personally, it's just data. A scientific experiment that doesn't prove a hypothesis is not a failure, it's a success. It means we now know what doesn't work, which is amazing. So we got to first off erase all of that stuff where you make it mean that you suck and you can't do it, because that's not true at all. There's a couple things that I would say. One is you have to look at your own energetics. Were you actually available? Were you actually open to holding this? And were you ready to do it? Because sometimes you have to do some alignment for yourself. Two, did you have the skill set necessary to hold a group of people who might not be in a good frame of mind? If you had a bunch of people who are super stressed out and having just walked through a bunch of traumas, because didn't the whole world, would you know what to do if one of them was having a really hard time? Would you be able to hold that space, or would you cause more harm with it? If the answer is not yes, I know without a shadow of a doubt that I could hold people through that, I would say you probably need a little bit more training. And I can definitely hook you up with that if that's what you need. And then third, I would say start even smaller. If that one where you invested a bunch of money tanked, do something where you don't have to pay for a venue. Either do it at your home or like find a space where you're not being charged, a friend's home, a gazebo outside, something like that, where the stakes are lower. So your nervous system can feel really relaxed and like it's not a super high stakes thing where you're going to lose money. And then you could invite people that you know would come. And you could even do it for free the first time. Sometimes we have to take like, I don't want to call them itty bitty baby steps, but the baby step is momentous, right? If the big thing that you tried to do didn't work, back it all the way up so it feels so freaking easy.
I think that's really beautiful advice. And I like how you started off with like, yeah, this is data. Good job. We know it doesn't work. And it reminds me of uh, who's the guy that made the light bulbs?
Edison?
Edison. Yeah. I don't know why I was like thinking Einstein. Edison. Yeah. He's like, I remember reading like a reporter asked him, you tried to make a light bulb 10,000 times and failed. Like, why did you keep going? He's like, I didn't fail. I found 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb. Okay, so that's really great advice. And you've touched on something a couple times now about making it trauma informed, being able to hold space in case someone is having that really difficult time. Talk to me about how you go about doing that.
So we can't create safe places for people, and we can't promise that because you never know what's going to be a trigger for someone. And unfortunately, a lot of people have had a lot of awful things happen to them. But we can do two pieces. One is we can create a safer space by setting up a container that feels really secure for people and their nervous systems. And I'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. But number two is we have to ourselves be okay and like able to be a clear channel, even if someone else is going to be going through something, going to be dysregulated. You have to be basically a rock who's not going to then like, spin out themselves.
Yeah, totally. Can you talk about that first part for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Setting up a container that feels safe and secure to people if they're going to do any kind of transformational work is so important. So, to me, what this looks like is first creating a physical space that feels calm and welcoming. So, your atmosphere and ambiance. Secondly, it's not just diving right in to your magical modalities and your activations and the journeys that you're going to go on. I've seen people do that and it I will equate it to sex without foreplay. It is just not a vibe. It's way too intense. It can be like uncomfortable. You know, we need to warm people up. We need to make them feel comfortable and safe. Like buy them dinner first, basically, right? And that means telling people what you're going to do, introducing yourself, explaining how the day is going to go or the event is going to go, explaining where the washrooms are. And I like to tell or show people how to do practices to get people out of their head and into their heart, and open and relaxed. Because if people don't feel comfortable, if they're feeling anxious or nervous, their shields are up. They're not going to actually get the benefit from your beautiful experience unless you can get them into that state where they're open and receptive. If they are worried about what's going to happen, if they're worried about, like, oh my gosh, is there going to be a bathroom break? I kind of think I had too much coffee. Like, they're not going to really enjoy the sound healing or whatever, experiences that you have planned for the day. We also talk energetically about creating a space where like energy can flow and move. There are some people that will shield something so hard that like energy can't flow out and divine energy can't flow in, and then like energies just bounce around in the space. Like there's a lot of pieces that go in to masterfully hosting a transformational event.
Yeah, totally. I really like that explanation. So what about when someone has been triggered? What if you have someone that's been triggered, you're on this event by yourself, you have this whole group to take care of, someone's obviously having some emotions. What do you advise people on that?
Actually, I would never advise that you host an event that's bigger than a couple people by yourself. So that's first and foremost. You should have someone there with you, supporting you and holding space, supporting you in the little pieces, and someone who would be able to be, I've heard it called like an angel guide or a space holder or something, who could support that person while you are doing the majority of the work, or who could take over the group facilitation, or just something like that. Secondly, part of the piece is setting, like, all of the things that I teach people and how to set it up can lessen that. We in my practices and the way that I train people and the way that I host events, we make sure that people know that emotions might come up and that they're welcome, and that we tell all the other participants, and we all create this like agreement that people are allowed to have feelings. So people won't get uncomfortable, and they might have an expression, they might be crying, they might have something like that, and no one's going to go up and be like, oh my gosh, here's some Kleenex, stop crying, I'm uncomfortable with that, right? Like, we create the space where somebody could feel comfortable to just go and cry in a corner, and that's totally fine. And you can let them know that they can check in with you, or you might be like, hey, can I support you now or afterwards? But it doesn't have to be like a huge big thing if you set it up properly.
Totally. So, what do you advise people who have that support person? What do you advise that person to say? Like, when you, because if someone is having a serious emotional reaction, right? It's probably a good idea to check in with them as one of the facilitators. So, how do you approach that person? What do you say?
Yeah. Well, again, I would personally set this all up at in the opening circle where I'm explaining everything, and also with my support person. It would depend on their level of support. The people that I get to support my stuff, they're usually facilitators I've trained, so I will just be like, "Can you go check on them, please?" Right? But um, if I was working in a group where I didn't have that, I would probably be the one personally to be like, "Hey, I just want to check in. Um, if you need to exit for a little bit, go ahead. I can check in with you, or we can have a conversation outside. There's water. Do you need, some time? Just letting you know that we can also talk about this after this." Event, and just checking in with what they need, but not making it a really big deal. Like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, nobody needs that. Right, mostly giving them space, but letting them know that you're there available as a resource and support. And a lot of times people just need space, they might need some water, you know what I mean? Like, they just usually need that kind of thing. And if it's something big that they really need support with moving, we would do that outside of the circle, right? We would do that outside, and we could suggest to the person that they could, just hang out either inside the group or outside, and you would be able to support them after you're done facilitating.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That makes sense. I'm interested in it. I used to run yoga teacher trainings, and I would have a couple people on staff. I would have usually like mid 30s would be like the number of group people in the group. And for anyone listening that's gone through yoga teacher training, it's kind of like group therapy in a way. And we would often have people who got triggered or had emotional reactions, and it makes me feel good to know that all the advice you just gave were things that we did regularly. So, but I was just, I'm curious also if there's other things we can do, and I think it's good for listeners too. So thanks for reassuring me a little bit there.
Perfect.
So
And
yeah.
if I can just also add, that's one of the reasons also include coaching in my transformational journey facilitator training. So you know how to work with someone one on one and support them, because I think that you need to have both to be a really masterful facilitator, because you might have situations like this where you need to be in that one on one environment. So having tools to help people move energy tools to help people maybe shift a belief system, tools to help people move emotions in a way that works. So I give people those tools that they can use in individual situations as well as group situations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super important because as a coach, you need to be able to work with someone, right? You need to be able to work with someone one on one. It is a different skill set a little bit than facilitating a large group. I can see like how having that foundation would be important before conducting like a whole group session and leading a whole group through an exercise. So, a lot of times these healers or coaches, most of the time, have come from a place of their own trauma, right? They've gone on their own healing journey. Something has awakened in them. They've wanted to they've gone through this whole healing journey. They've transformed their own lives. They've reinvented themselves, and then something in them wants to give back and help to other people. So have you found that people making that shift from their own healing journey to leading others through it goes smoothly? Have you noticed like difficulties that people have? Just curious about that.
Is it ever smooth? Like, it's kind of a wild ride, I think. And that bridge from being a someone on the healing journey to being a healer can be a little bit undefined for people. And I often work with people in my private practice who are really in that bridge space. And what I have to teach them is that there's a point where you stop digging to do your own healing. You have to stop looking for things to heal and you start identifying as someone who is living their life, and things are going to come up and you can use your tools and heal yourself as needed, but you have to stop digging and looking and really identifying as still being on the healing journey in order to make that shift. And you have to start acting as though you are that version of you who is already healed by learning to live and enjoy your life in this new
Yeah, you
way.
have to step into a different role, right?
Absolutely.
So how does that go over when you tell people that?
Usually people are like, "Ah, right, yes, of course." But it can sometimes take some practice because we can really have deep programs and habits, and these are in the subconscious mind often, of like, oh, I need to fix this, I need to heal myself, I need to keep looking for things. So I love to really help people rewire their subconscious or their unconscious mind to start identifying in this new way because it is a big leap.
So what advice do you have for someone who has been on that healing journey and they're ready to pivot and they want to start helping others and they don't know where to start?
There is a period that I think we need to really honor where you don't just step from healing journey into I am healing others. There's this space in between where you need to really stabilize your energy field, expand out everything that you have. And like I said before, start to live your life, start to have fun, start to create more, start to play more, start to use your voice and speak your truth and practice living in this new flow that you have as like an aligned, healed creator being, and then start to build your practice after you've kind of got at least had a little bit of time in that space.
That makes sense because everything is a journey, right? Nothing happens just like on the turn of a dime. So for people who are listening and think that they want to help others, like what's the best way to get started?
There are so many ways to help people. What I think, if you don't already have a calling, you're like, I know I'm supposed to do this modality or do it in this way, is you need to, again, sit with yourself and start to connect with your soul's voice, and tune into what your unique path is. And typically it's going to have something to do with the journey that you just had. And you can be like, okay, well, what helped me? What was the most supportive to me? Who was I 2 years ago, 5 years ago? And what did she need to hear or they need to hear? And you can start to really see what people need that way and see how you can support them in that. And it might include more training, more study, more practice, but then really showing up as an example of what it looks like to survive and thrive after those challenges is really one of the most potent things you can do.
Yeah, I really like that you said survive and thrive. So how do you how do you navigate that balance between wanting to support people, wanting to help heal people, but also not wanting to feed into someone's story of victimization?
Mm, that's such a good question. Um, there is an element that I believe healers, teachers, coaches need to hold, which is spiritual maturity and the capacity to see somebody and their journey without needing to come in as the fixer of it and allow them to have their journey. So that's part of the space holding thing and not go into the savior kind of thing that can also sometimes happen where like I have to fix you because that's going to make me feel better or something like that. So first off, we have to learn how to care but not try to carry somebody. That's really, really important. And then also having the tools to walk people on the journey one little bit at a time without needing to rush it and with allowing the person to make mistakes. So you said you are pregnant, which is amazing. Is this going to be your first or do you have kids?
It's going to be my first, yeah.
So exciting. So this is really cool because the way healers get to do this is by learning what like the best parents do. As your kid is a little baby, obviously you have to do everything for them. Right now, you're doing literally everything. And the entire journey of parenting is letting them do more and more on their own while you hold space and you guide and you give them tools and you give advice. But if you parent by always doing everything for your kid, they are going to turn out to be useless and spoiled and entitled and bratty. Like, that's not the vibe. We can't parent that way and we can't heal that way either. We have to do that thing where we allow people to have the tools and take them if they wish and go on their own journey while we're here supporting them, rooting for them, cheering them on, and being an example.
Yeah, I like everything you said. I'm still a little unclear on, not like walking that line of not feeding into their story and their victimization because, I want to empower people. I'm sure listeners want to empower people. I'm sure so many people that are healers and coaches want to empower people. So how do we make something quote unquote trauma informed where we're being sensitive, we're taking care of people's needs, but we also don't want to use your metaphor, baby them too much, right? We want them to step in their own power. We want them to change their story because changing their story changes their life.
Mm. There is a fine line. And I know I walk very intuitively with my clients. I move into their energy field and I am a mother. And with my child, I know just intuitively, instinctively by following her energy and also just, I don't know, tapping into whatever cosmic mother energy as well. When she needs me to just hold her,
Hmm.
when she needs me not to tell her, I told you not to do that. And look, now you're hurt. Like when she just needs that comfort and space holding. And then when it's appropriate to offer the life lesson, like, wow, that really sucked. What are we learning from this? How are we going to move forward? And support her in not staying stuck in the energy of, wow, that really sucked, and like crying and like wallowing in it. And like it's just following this flow. Kids are better at it though than adult humans. Adult humans have these beliefs and thoughts that can like make them ruminate and wallow and want to stay stuck. So
Yeah.
sometimes we get to be an example of like, yeah, that sucked. I'm so sorry, and you get to feel your feelings. And we're really big on this: is feel all of the feelings, and you have to move them through your body. Then you have to shift the beliefs that are keeping you stuck in looping the feelings, which create the cascade of effects in your body. So we can go in after the feelings are felt to look at the subconscious mind and the belief systems and say what needs to shift, because there's something here that is not supporting you if you want to move forward, which I know you do because you're working with me. And then we do that emotional and mental work, and then once those things are aligned, we can be okay, what are the next action steps? Right,
Yeah,
so there's a
I like that answer. Yeah. I like that answer. And, it makes me think of like my husband and I, whenever one of us is upset, the other person has learned to be like, do you need comfort or do you need solutions? Because when you
Mhm.
want comfort, having someone just like give you solutions is just awful, right? But sometimes, you don't need to be like feeling smothered by it. You want someone to be like, okay, let's like figure this shit out, right? Like, let's have a conversation. And it makes me think of Tony Robbins too, because he's so intuitive, like you were saying about what people need. I don't know if you've seen his little behind the scenes documentary called I'm Not Your Guru, but he gives this one woman really tough love, like really tough love. And it's what she needed in the moment. And he gives this other woman, he kind of comes at her a little tough. And then as soon as she tells him her story, she had this horrible story. She was raised in this cult where she was uh, like continuously raped as like from a child. And as soon as he heard her story, he became that like super soft, super comforting. He was crying with her, and then it's interesting, and it's what they both needed, right? But it's interesting because later in that documentary, they interview the woman who got the tough love, and she was like, "Well, why couldn't I have gotten the coddling that that woman got?" Like she was like a little bit bitter about it, and then she kind of finally admitted, like, that's probably what I needed. But it's interesting, and you never really know how someone's going to react in that kind of way, right?
Absolutely. And the other piece that I like to follow, because you can ask people, like, what do you need from me right now? You can straight up ask that, or what do you want from me? Because they might not know what they need. We can follow the flow intuitively. We can have the skill set and the practice, because you might actually not get this right a few times and then have to try a different tactic. I've had a lot of times where I've been like, oh, okay, no, we need to go into this mode when I thought we were in this mode. But we have to also understand how the nervous system works. Because if somebody is totally dysregulated, like there's no access to any of the higher level, like let's move forward pieces. So I like to check in with where someone is at energetically, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and literally in their nervous system, so that we can know where we need to be and where we can go. And obviously I've got skills to help people get to where they need to go in that regard too. But yeah, if somebody has their fight or flight shields up and they don't feel safe, they're not going to have access to their intuition, their logic. They're like, oh, I think this could help me move forward kind of intellect either.
It's so true. When their nervous system is dysregulated or they're in body and brain incoherence, no new information can come into their nervous system that's not related to that emotion thought loop that they're just stuck in, right? Okay, good question for you. How do you check in with someone's nervous system? How do you look at someone and be like, okay, they're in dysregulation right now, like nothing I say is going to get through?
So first I want to make it clear that I am not an expert in, somatic therapy or nervous system regulation, but I do have a lot of practice with this stuff and a lot of tools work. But one thing we need to always know is when you are out of your scope as a coach or as a facilitator and when you need to refer out. So it's really important to have the ability to go, you know what, I think you might need to go and see somebody who has more expertise in that to really get to the root of this stuff. And that being said, when somebody is super dysregulated, I like to support them in coming into presence if we can. First, we might need to dispel or discharge some of the energy. Tools that have worked for me and worked for many of my clients, but your mileage may vary, include shaking, like literally shaking and making noise to get rid of some of that energy, toning, doing breath work practices, coming into the heart. I also really find it supportive to, once we've moved some energy, asking someone's luminous team to come in and support and offer the love and the healing that they require. Because I find when we first move the energy and then we bring people into presence, call in their team, and ask Gaia, source, spirit, their team, a lot of times, like even grandma energy will come through. They can feel the comfort and the love that they need in that moment.
Yeah, I think those are all really great tools to bring someone down. I guess I want to go back to my original question. Like when you're looking at someone and you're trying to figure out that intuitive path you want to take, right? Is this person need comfort right now? Do they need solutions? Do they need whatever? How do you know by looking at them that that they're like, oh, they just need some like breath work right now. Like they're too far gone to like hear what I'm saying.
I think for me, it's a combination of intuition because I've spent many years honing my intuition, but also a lot of experience. So I do have all of my psychic senses activated. I am clairsentient, claircognizant. So like part of it is I just know because I can sense it and I can feel it in my own body too. There's also cues that, like, just by what people are saying, right? By what people are presenting with their body language, that I think you can tune into as well. And it'll come evident in conversation. If somebody keeps deflecting what you're saying or they're twisting it or whatever, you can go, okay, this is a sign. If somebody is, like, making all kinds of, like anything you say, they're like, no, I can't do that, right? Like you can hear that. You can feel it. Even if you're not clairsentient, everybody's clairsentient. You should be clairsentient. You should be able to feel people's energy if you're doing this work. I think that's actually like you should be open enough that you can feel them. But we're energy animals. We can tell if someone's stressed out, right? Like we can. It's a vibe. Everybody's got this.
Yeah, I like that explanation. Okay, so what about for people who want to get started? They want to become a coach or a healer, and they're feeling imposter syndrome. They're looking out there at Instagram, and it seems like every other person and their mother is a mindset coach these days. They're like, how do I even break into this? Like, what do you say to someone who's feeling imposter syndrome?
First off, sometimes it's we don't feel ready because we literally aren't. And we have to be okay with that. And then we go, okay, what do I need to do to be ready to do this? Do I need to do my own personal development work? Do I need to do my own mindset work? Or do I need to study something like a modality that can help me get there? And then if you've got the modality, maybe you need to practice a bit before you go and start to create something. I'm really big on like basically doing it in such a small way that it feels comfortable, that you don't feel like you're reaching or that you're pretending to be something that you're not, and growing from that place. So when you're wanting to start coaching or healing, you start for free. I always make my coaches and I suggest people do a practicum where you're not charging for your gifts at first. You are doing it for free and you're letting that person know that you are studying, and their energy exchange is going to be feedback to you, maybe a testimonial. And you practice enough times with people, and maybe at first it's somebody that you really trust, that is going to feel safe with you, and then you grow from that place and you're going to get the confidence through the action, right? It's that piece around not waiting for it to be perfect, not waiting for yourself to be perfect, but going like, I'm actually going to get better at this faster if I take messy action and I let myself practice with somebody and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I like that advice. I did that when I first started out, actually. I was part of a business coaching group and I had them all take my course, and I gave it to them for not for free, but super cheap in exchange for testimonials and in exchange for feedback. And it was great. We all did it for each other, and it was it was really perfect. You know, I do want to challenge you a little bit on what you first said, like maybe you're not ready. Because I don't know if anyone's ever like 100% ready, right? Like there's something to fake it till you make it, right? There's something about taking action, taking a leap of faith, getting outside of your comfort zone, and allowing yourself to grow that way, right? Like there's that little bit of a sink or swim. That doesn't mean taking like huge action. Like I loved your advice about starting small, maybe offering for free. Um, But I don't know. I think if someone feels they're ready, even if they have that fear, oftentimes fear is an illusion. Once they do it, the fear goes away, right?
Totally. And that's what I meant is, maybe you're not ready to do the splash it out on Instagram and charge $10,000 for
Hmm.
it yet. And that's why you feel like you can't do it because you're looking at somebody that's been doing it for a while. So
Yes.
you start where you're at.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, thanks for
You do it
clarifying.
anyway.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
that idea of like don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, right? Or someone's maybe been doing
exactly.
it, like you said. A lot of these people that are huge, that have millions of followers, they've been building that business, building that account for a decade, 2 decades. So, yeah, never compare yourself.
Exactly. I agree. But with the feel the fear and do it anyway, you you can't be so afraid of it that you're going to shut down. So it's like finding that sweet spot of something that's a stretch that's not going to put you into a dysregulated state where you feel like you can't. So it's starting with those small pieces and letting them be a bit of a leap, but not so much that you're gonna like absolutely like your pants, basically.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think that that's why we don't underestimate the power of a small step. Like it doesn't have to be a huge step. Small steps can, introduce you to the right people to help you on your path. Doors can open, tools can appear. So, do you have any other final advice? Something we haven't mentioned yet for coaches or healers or anyone in that space that's trying to grow their business and be a facilitator of these programs?
The world needs you now. So if you are having imposter syndrome and thinking like you can't, maybe get out of your own way and stop making it about you,
Hmm.
right? Start to understand that like it's not about you, it's about what service you can offer the world because at the highest level you are here to help. So I love to just actually see if I can let my ego step out of the way, the one that's trying to keep me small, trying to keep me safe. And I like to go, okay, let me just be a channel for the divine to flow through me. And the second I do that, I'm not worried about me anymore. It's how can I be of service? How can I help? And it is quite a shortcut to the imposter syndrome and all of those other pieces.
That's such a beautiful piece of advice. And I'm someone who loves public speaking. I've been in Toastmasters. I love getting speaking gigs, and so many people are afraid of public speaking. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got is it's not about you, it's about the audience, right? It's about connecting with the audience. So, and you can apply that to anything in life, right? Like we go into a room and oh my God. So there's one of my favorite poems is called On the Day You Read This by Lane Thomas. And there's this beautiful line in there that says, no one's really judging you when you walk into a room. And all they want to know is if you're judging them, right? We're all just wrapped up in our own head and our own shit, right? And we think everyone's worried about us, but if we can turn that lens outward, especially as someone who's trying to help other people, make it about them, it's like it takes away so much of that anxiety and that fear because it's not about you anymore.
Yeah, really, it's such a hack, truly, to do that. And I heard someone say that when you are overly anxious about you and how you're showing up and all of that, and worried about what people are thinking of you, it's you're actually being quite narcissistic
Yeah.
because you're making it all about you. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I also, The Four Agreements is one of my favorite books. I'm sure you've read it, but that's why don't take anything personally is one of the best pieces of advice ever. Right? It's just, everyone's so concerned about themselves, or they're getting offended by all these things, or, they're twisting things to make it about them. And usually no one's thinking about you, right? They're thinking about themselves. So that's a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn, but it's such an important one. So listeners, go read the Four Agreements. Awesome. So I know we've been talking about your program this whole time. People kind of know what you do at this point. Usually, I have people share at the end, but maybe you can just share like how people can find you, how they can get in touch with you if they do want to work with you.
Absolutely. There are lots of ways that I can support people at any stage, whether it's that personal development, spiritual development, or the business development piece. So, the place I'm at the most would be on Facebook or on Instagram. You can find me at Luminous Evolution on Facebook, or the Luminous Evolution on Instagram, or even TikTok or YouTube. I am everywhere.
That's how mine always goes too. I'm like, and this platform, and this platform. And all the links will be in the show notes too. So uh, we've got that set for listeners. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Kacie. I feel like we covered so many important things. And I love these conversations because, I don't really plan questions ahead of time. I like it to be really organic. And I feel like we touched on really important things about being trauma informed and how to handle certain situations. So I appreciate your insight and your advice to everyone. For everyone listening, check out the show notes to find out how to get in touch with Kacie, how to get in touch with myself. Check out my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It's available in paperback, ebook, audiobook. Please like, share, subscribe. Let's spread the good word. And thank you all so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day.